Okay, I just watched this video that was posted within my group, and it's pretty interesting, and I can explain it. Come here and you will understand what's really happening. Nobody else will tell you, but I will tell you. And I want to thank Mr. MBBB333, or 2Bs actually, who posted this, and I didn't even realize it, but there are some really mysterious half-illuminated suns appearing over the skies in some places like that. Really, well, that's a fake convex Earth, but it's really weird. You need to understand this if you know anything about optics. You need to understand what's really going on. Illumination, optics, and glass, and polarized glass. I've talked plenty about polarizers, and yes, the atmosphere is polarized. I even tell you that, and we notice that these suns are all at the horizon, so there are definitely creating some kind of polarization effect, and evidently this is only being noticed currently or lately and has not been happening before. So to me it's helping you understand, as my spirit reveals to all humanity, that you're living inside the concavity of the Earth and there's glass in the sky, and it's actually polarized glass. So that's why it's happening. I can't, it's just how my Betty works. When I say Betty, I'm talking about Paul Simon's song. You can call me Al. Watch that video if you don't understand that. But anyway, I wanted to go and kind of replicate what is going on. And if I go into my 3D modeler program, I'll help you understand that. Okay, this is my modeler version of it. And what I did, I created this rectangle here. But if you zoom in to it, this is looking down from the top of you. If I zoom in really, really close, you'll begin to see horizontal lines. You see the horizontal lines over there? I'll get a wire. Texture's good. There we go. So if I zoom really, really close, I'm replicating a polarizer. That's what I'm doing. So it's basically just like a grill. And so let's zoom back out. And I created a polarizer. In one layer, I have a concave sphere. Now you're looking on the inside surface of a sphere. Let me show you what I mean. So, I've done this so many times when I'm mapping the Earth. I map a spherical texture map on the inside surface of the Earth. And so that's what I'm doing there. And so I bring that into my layout version of Modeler here, and let's go back here. What I did is I put a volumetric light at the top. So you see at the top of that kind of pyramidal shaped illumination. Maybe you don't see it. There we go. Sorry about that. Didn't switch cameras. Okay. So there in layout, we have this illumination. The bottom would be the concavity of the Earth, that bottom white thing. I really should change the color of that. I'm just doing this really quick here. Let me just change it to like a bluish green to represent the Earth. Okay, so there's the Earth. And above the Earth, we see that horizontal black area. That's the actual polarizer. And so the light is going through the polarizer. And let's get a different viewpoint. It's looking down. And this is a perspective view where basically what I did is I have the camera. Let's go back to wireframe mode here. I have the camera situated below the concavity of the Earth. Let's bring it up a little bit higher, and then I'm just going to really, really enhance the depth of. Actually, it doesn't have to be that low. It could be 10 millimeters about or so. Okay, that's good. So, and what I did was I duplicated the polarizer. So I created an X. You see the X there. So looking top down, we see an X like that. And so we have the sun right above that X, or the center section of that X. Oops, I'm upside down there. All right. So we have a light at the top replicating the sun. It's not a simulator. Well, actually, this is the only sun simulator there is. That other thing that ladies talk about, or some of these other conspiratorial nutters talk about, is ridiculous. It's not. You're not using your common sense, and you really are siding with an air of stupidity. It's just as bad as saying you live on a rotating, tilted sphere. I mean, Sun Simulator, and NASA did it too? Come on. Women and people who believe that crap, you really are more. I mean, I don't mean to insult you. I'm sorry. But anyway, let's go back. I'm just going to help you understand what's going on. And I cannot replicate, at least at this moment, I just started dabbling into this, but I cannot replicate that effect as of this moment. But I can help you understand what's really happening here. So if I go back into, let's go to VPR mode, which gives you a kind of like a live rendered version of what's happening here. And we have the camera. Let's look up at the polarizer and see what we see. Oh, look at that. The camera is pointing straight through the polarizers to the actual illuminated volumetric light source. And I'm rotating the camera, and you see a tiny little white dot. And what that dot is indicating is the actual gap between the two perpendicular polarizers. Okay, zoom back out a little bit here. Zoom back a little bit more. Now you also notice here you see a perpendicular set. It's an X on the outer edge of that illuminated circle like that, and that's really replicating what we see with the sundogs in the 22nd and 46 degree halos. We see that horizontal and that vertical illumination where it looks like, you know, people don't understand why we're getting an actual perpendicular illumination like that. And that's why that is happening. Okay, let me take this camera and zoom out a little bit. Or actually decrease the focal length a little bit more. Let's go to 7. Let's try a little bit more. 6. Well, that's not really helping too much. But let's go back to my perspective view, and you will see that illumination happening. And that's all that's happening. I'm not rotating the light, I'm just rotating the camera. So I mean, that's why people have different observations of the sun at different locations based upon the angles. And keep in mind, I cannot replicate bending light within 3D, but light does bend. And so it's bending light as well. So you have the different angles at which you're viewing the illumination of the sun, and it's creating this effect. And it's also going to cancel out because of the polarized glass. It's going to, I mean, that's what's happening here. There's no other explanation. I mean, you guys have been looking at this for a while and studying it, and you have to come to the conclusion that there's no other option but glass in the sky polarizing that like that. Okay, you just need to come to terms with that. This is happening. Even Eric brought this up. You see like a, let me change windows here. You see like in this shot here, you see like a birefringence to the edge of the actual cutoff of the shadow, the transition point there, the termination line basically. And let me see if I can get a couple other pictures here. This is when the sun is lower, so it's something to do with the curved light when the sun is at an apparent low elevation. Remember, the sun is not really literally up there because, or not up there, it's not literally straight across because light is bending up toward the center, and it actually inverts everything. It's a huge trick. He also brought up this. This is interesting too. And listen to what he says about that. You can hear the scraping sound. Remember I talked about the scraping sound and the mystery behind why we're actually hearing as well as seeing something in the sky, a celestial object streak across the sky. At the same time, normally you would understand that, you would think that light is much, much faster than sound. But we're hearing this at the same time, and I talked about how that's probably happening because the meteor above the glass is beginning to scrape against the glass and make the rumbling sound, he compares it to a snowplow sound going across, and so it has a head start. The sound has a head start. Not only that, there's a variance in velocity. I mentioned that before, a variance in velocity of light. I mean, they will tell you that it's constant, but that's complete bullshit, only to make the frickin' curly-headed old Einstein one-stone appear to be smart. He's a fool. You know, air stupidity, basically. And so that's what's happening. Let me play this.
I don't know. I'll let you guys decide, but so here in just a second. It looks like a triangle of some sort. I don't know if it's an actual phenomenon. It's not the pt.1. I'll share that with you in just a minute. 23rd, Michigan. Whatever this is or was spotted by Dan yesterday evening. He had just enough time to snap 2 photographs, and then it was gone. Said it wasn't an airplane, it wasn't a fireball, doesn't know what it was. If you look at the front of this thing, I'll get a little closer here in just a second. It looks like a triangle of some sort. I don't know if it's a natural phenomenon. If it's not the pt.1, I'll share that with you in just a minute. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. But I will tell you what he said it sounded like. It also came with sound. He said it reminded him of a snowplow pushing snow on a concrete pavement. That's what this thing sounded like when it went over.
A snowplow pushing snow on a concrete pavement. Okay, it's a no-brainer. If you watch my previous video, I talked about how little glass bubbles on one side of the glass is going to create that. What that mystery that the FAA has been showing through the reports of the zone or whatever. It's simple, guys. There's no other explanation. And you have to really come to terms with the fact that I'm presenting you truth and concerning the Earth, concerning the shape of the Earth, concerning whatever is inside the Earth, whether or not it has to do with the glass sky or the birefringence or the polarization. It all makes sense. And the only reason the majority of the population is rejecting this is because it seems too weird. Not only that, but because the main advocate, me, claims to be God in the flesh, Christ. You need to come to terms with that. Scientifically speaking, you need to look, you need to separate, and you have to look at the evidence that present to you. There's no other way to describe what we see in the sky than understanding that there's a glass sky, there's polarizing going on, on and on, there's bending light. There's no other way to explain that. The sound has a variant velocity as well as light. And even at that height, we don't know. It could be similar to how sound penetrates through water. It goes super, super fast. And we also know that light slows. If you watch my previous videos, I talked about that too. At the higher altitudes you go, there's so many ways in which you can actually slow light. Watch my slow light video to understand that. You have superconductivity going on there. That's why we have negative 455 degrees. It's very, very cold. It's frigid. On and on and on. So we hear the scraping of the meteor. It is a meteor, even though the Meteorological Society did not report it. It is during the daytime. You'll notice, we have the triboluminescence of the illumination of the streak happening during the daytime. That's all it can be, guys. That's all it can be. So come to terms with that. I'm presenting you the factual information, and you really need to be honest with yourself. If I'm presenting so much accurate information about the shape of the Earth, and it has been held as a big mystery for centuries and decades and on and on and on, you need to come to terms and realize that maybe my Christ claims are not wrong. Watch my What If video sung by my good buddy Andreas. So there you go. I also am going to talk a little bit more about polarization of light, hopefully in the near future, and to help describe a few other things that cannot be described, like Bell's theorem. They don't understand that it's not. Okay. I'll get in. That's another video. We'll get into that later. I'll explain it. It all has to do with the actual as the light goes through the polarizer. If it's too sharp, it's just like a fast race car going around a racetrack. If it's too sharp of a turn, it's going to crash into the wall if it's going really fast. And so if you have a polarizer going through one polarizer, and then the light hits a 45-degree polarizer, it's only going to allow half of the light to go through. But if you put it like a intermediary polarizer between those two polarizers, that's at 22.5 degrees, you actually can allow more light to penetrate through all three polarizers. And that's because the light it's slightly bending as it goes through, and it's not making a sharp turn like it does if it just did a 45. It first does a 22.5 and then a 45 like that. You understand what I'm saying? I'll explain it more later. But that's why it's happening. Also, you don't understand. You don't know. I mean, it's possible. You know how they explain the electromagnetism of a light beam. It's perpendicular. You have electricity going on one plane, and then 90 degrees you have the actual magnetism like that. Well, you don't know. I mean, it's possible that that polarized light beam is actually coming in where one of those planes is shorter than the other. And so, well, I'll get into that more later. I'm kind of going off topic here. Well, it's not really off topic, but it's the same. But that's what's happening. Where am I? So, there we go. Let me go back here, and you see, I'm just moving the camera, and you see how that on the outer edges of that illumination, it's creating that X, that cross. That's how we get the illuminated cross during sundogs or halos or glories. That's how we get there. There's got to be polarized light happening. And you can also see it's in the shape of the light. That tiny little dot is in the shape of a diamond. And, that's what we see. You understand, guys? There's no other way to describe what we see in the sky without the glass. Okay, guys?